The day I was kidnapped while pregnant with my husband's child. I honestly thought that was how my story was going to end, in some filthy warehouse with a stranger holding a jagged piece of metal way too close to my stomach. Tell me something, if you were sitting there tied to a chair hearing your own heartbeat in your ears, would you be thinking about your past mistakes or about who you love the most? Because me, all I could think was this stupid sentence that kept looping in my head. This all started because I sat at the wrong table on a blind date. Yeah, that happened. My name is Lillian, and I'm going to tell you how a poor girl with a supermarket job ended up married to a billionaire CEO, fighting off ex's scandals, family politics, and actual criminals, while trying not to lose herself in the process. This isn't some fairy tale ad for Marry Rich and your problems disappear. This is messy and embarrassing and sometimes ugly. And if you listen closely, you might hear pieces of your own story in mine. You know what I mean. Back then, my world was pretty small. I worked as a sales assistant at a big supermarket, Colmart, one of those shiny branches inside a fancy mall, part of Cole Enterprises, that everybody in the city knew by name. My routine was simple. Wake up early, squeeze into a crowded bus stand on my feet all day, smile at customers who yelled about prices, like I personally wrote inflation, then drag myself home, count my small salary, and tell myself one day, this will pay off one day. I'll build something better from this. I didn't have much, but I had pride, and I had a plan. The problem was not my job, not my income, not even my tired feet. The problem was my mother, my mom. Mrs. Ruth is from that school of thought, where a woman's life doesn't really start until she gets married. Every morning felt like a scheduled lecture. Lillian, all your mates are getting married. What are you waiting for? Angels to drop a husband at your doorstep. Do you want me to die without carrying my grandchildren? The first 100 times I tried to explain calmly that I wanted to build myself first, that I wanted to stand as my own person before I stood next to anyone else. She would just wave her hand and say I was talking like the girls on TV. At some point I stopped arguing and just got tired. Have you ever said yes to something simply because you didn't have energy left to say no anymore? If it were you, what would you have done? One day, she came in all excited, that dangerous kind of excitement, and said, "I've arranged a blind date for you. Just go talk to him. If you don't like him, fine, but at least try." She said try, like she was offering me oxygen. She had already sent the guy my picture, already picked the restaurant, already decided my future in her head. To get her to stop nagging, I agreed. So that Saturday afternoon, I put on a simple yellow gown I'd bought with my own salary. Did light makeup, tied my hair back. Nothing dramatic. I'm not really the walk into the room, and everyone stares type. But when I looked in the mirror, I thought, okay, you look decent. You can survive this. When I got to the restaurant, it was full of couples. You know that soft, low music, clinking glasses, the smell of expensive food girls in pretty dresses pretending they weren't studying the other girls' dresses. My palms were sweating. I checked my mom's message again. Table 66. I walked between the tables trying not to knock anyone's chair. Heart-pounding eyes darting from number to number. That's when the nerves kicked in, and my brain betrayed me. I saw table 99, but in my panic, I read it as 66, and sat down. The man sitting there looked up at me surprised. He was tall, clean-shaven, wearing a white shirt that probably cost more than my monthly paycheck, with this calm, contained face that gave nothing away. He opened his mouth to say something, and I just exploded. "I'm sorry." I blurted out words tripping over themselves. I really don't want to go on a blind date. This is the only way I can show my mom that I tried. I heard myself and cringed inside. My hands were shaking, so of course I made it worse. I reached for the glass of water in front of me, and my fingers caught it wrong. The whole thing tipped over and poured straight across the table and all over his perfect white shirt. Cold water, expensive fabric, big splash. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm such a clumsy person." I gasped, my face on fire. That was it. My social battery shattered, my brain screaming abort mission. So I did the only thing I felt capable of in that moment. I ran. I didn't wait for his response. I just stood up and hurried out of the restaurant like it was on fire. Except the outside was worse, because right there, leaning like he owned the sidewalk, was my ex-boyfriend Ethan. Tall, arrogant, wearing sunglasses like we were in some low-budget music video, dressed in a cream jacket. And that smirk I used to think was attractive before I knew better. We had dated for 2 years, right up until the day I found out he'd been cheating with someone else. "Wow, you have the guts to show your face," he said, that wicked smile getting wider after wasting my time for 2 years. "You just left." I blinked, completely thrown. "You were the one who cheated on me, Ethan." He got louder, like he wanted everyone within a mile to hear. "My mom said you must refund all the money we spent on you. Food, clothes, everything. And let's not forget my wasted youth. You know that feeling when your hands start shaking, but your mouth refuses to stay quiet. Are you hearing yourself?" I shot back, "You cheated. I should be the one asking for compensation." He stepped closer, invading my space voice, dripping with spite. "Even that gown you're wearing, I bought it. I want it back." I laughed. But it wasn't a funny laugh. It was that bitter one that tastes like old tears. "Idiot, in case you forgot. I bought this gown with my salary last year. Go back to your mommy and cry." People were starting to look. He didn't care. He took another step, about to launch into another insult. And that's when someone stepped between us. It was the man from the restaurant, the one with the wet white shirt. He positioned himself right in front of me, facing Ethan. But his eyes checked mine first, just for a second, like he was making sure I wasn't about to fall apart. Then he turned fully to Ethan and asked in this calm, steady voice, "Is this man bothering you? Who are you?" Ethan snapped. The stranger ignored the question and looked back at me. "I'm serious," he said. "If you don't want to deal with men like him again, or your mother's pressure, then marry me right now." Yes. Those words actually came out of his mouth. I stared at him, then at Ethan, then back at him, completely stunned. What I managed. "Marry me right now," he repeated, same calm tone, like he wasn't asking something insane. "Let's go and register the marriage right now." For a moment, the world just froze. Cars kept moving around us. People kept walking. But in my head, everything was silent. Ethan's face twisted in shock, like someone had slapped him without touching him. And me, the poor supermarket girl in the yellow gown, standing between a cheating ex and a stranger offering marriage in the middle of the street, my heart beating in my ears, my pride screaming, my mother's voice echoing in my head. So what did I do? I said yes. "Let's go," I heard myself say, and even I couldn't believe it. Twist number 1 right there. Spoiler, it wasn't the last one. That afternoon, I walked into the marriage registry with a man whose name I didn't even know yet. There was no music, no dress, no cake, no flowers, no family. Just a tired clerk, 2 random witnesses, and a sheet of paper. We signed, we were handed a certificate, and just like that, I became Mrs. Lillian Cole. Outside, the sky was gray. The breeze was soft. The world looked exactly the same. But everything had changed. I stood beside him, barely processing what I'd done. He watched me quietly for a moment, and then said, "Lillian." "Yes," I answered. "There's something you need to know." He said, "It's a rule in my family. In the Cole family, there is no divorce, only widowhood." I blinked hard. "What do you mean?" "We don't believe in breaking marriages." he explained. Not dramatically, just matter of fact. If we agree to be husband and wife, we stay married, the only way out is through death. I stared at him, my brain doing cartwheels. We just met, I said slowly. I know he nodded. Look, we can call this a 1-month trial. All right? We try for 1 month. If you're not happy, I'll figure something out quietly. No drama, no public scenes. But for now, we just try. So there I was, freshly tied to a man who believed in no divorce, only widowhood, agreeing to a 1-month trial marriage like it was some kind of subscription. If you were in my shoes, would you have run, or would you have done exactly what I did to see where this wild road was going? I took a deep breath and said, all right, 1 month. On the way out, I remembered something painfully normal and blurted, can you give me a ride to work? That surprised him more than the wedding, I think. Of course. In the car, I explained. I worked at Colmart, told him about my supervisor, how strict she was, how one more late arrival, and she'd probably skin me alive. He laughed, this quiet little chuckle that made me want to say something else, just to hear it again. Then I made the joke that would haunt me. I told him my supervisor was obsessed with the CEO of Cole Enterprises, how she talked about him like he was some perfect god of discipline. And I rolled my eyes and said I think he's just some old greasy guy with too much hair gel and a stick up his spine, just like every CEO, slick and full of himself. I saw his lips twitch. You think so? Yeah, I shrugged. I've never seen him. But they're all the same. What if I told you the CEO of Cole Enterprises is actually quite handsome? He teased. Let me suffer in peace, I groaned. He didn't answer, just smiled to himself, because of course he knew something I didn't. His name, as I would soon learn, was Derek Cole. The Derek Cole, CEO of Cole Enterprises, the same man whose name was printed on half the things we sold at the supermarket. But I didn't know that yet. When we reached the mall, I thanked him, tried to slip out of the car quietly. I'll pick you up after work, he said. No need, really. I'll be fine, I replied quickly. He just smiled and said I didn't ask. I said I'll pick you. Inside the supermarket, the day had already started without me. I rushed to my spot, hoping my supervisor Lisa hadn't noticed. Of course she had. Lisa was standing by the shelves with her arms crossed. Tall, sharp eyes. Lipstick too bright. Ego even brighter. You're late, she said. I'm sorry, madam. It was traffic, I murmured. You always have traffic. Are you the only one living in this city? She snapped. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. Don't let me report you again, and don't forget, today is not the day to mess up. The CEO is coming. What CEO? I asked, genuinely blank. She rolled her eyes. The CEO of Cole Enterprises. Our supermarket is a subsidiary. He might come in person today. I mumbled under my breath, oh, that greasy guy. What did you say? She barked. Nothing, madam, just nothing. Don't joke like that, she hissed. He's not greasy, he's powerful, rich, young, and handsome. If I ever get the chance to stand near him, I swear I'll make him fall for me. Good luck with that, I muttered, barely holding back a laugh. The universe heard me, and the universe has jokes. Around noon, the store was packed. Soft music played trolleys, squeaked the bright lights, bounced off polished floors. I was at the pastry counter, arranging cupcakes and cream cakes, my body working on autopilot, while my mind replayed the insanity of my emergency marriage. Someone brushed past me. My elbow hit a tray, and one of the cream cakes slid off in perfect slow motion and landed right on the front of a woman's white designer blouse. Cream. Where? Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I gasped, scrambling for tissue, my hands trembling. Are you mad? The woman shouted, looking down at the stain like it was blood. Do you know how much this top costs? Lisa appeared out of nowhere, heels clicking like gunshots. "What happened here?" she demanded. "She stained my blouse." The customer cried, pointing at me. "Your girl has no control." Lisa turned to me and folded her arms. "You again." "It was an accident I didn't see," I started. "You never see anything," she snapped. "You've been a headache since day one." And as if the scene needed more drama, another voice joined in from behind the customer. Full of attitude, full of perfume. Well, I'm not surprised. She said she always looked like she didn't belong here. I turned, and there was Bella. Tall, slim hair, laid perfume strong enough to choke a small nation. She was a part-time supervisor from another branch, but she carried herself like she owned the whole chain. Rumor said she had connections with someone high up at Cole Enterprises. "What are you doing here?" I asked. She smiled that smug little smile. "Just came to support Lisa clearly. This place needs proper staff." Lisa stepped forward. "You know what, Lillian? I've had enough. You're fired." My heart dropped. "What, you're firing me because of a cupcake?" She rolled her eyes. "You don't match this store's image. You're careless and honestly, you bring down the atmosphere." Customers and staff had started gathering, pretending to arrange things on shelves, while watching everything. My throat tightened, my eyes burned. I could feel my pride and my fear wrestling inside my chest. Then something shifted. The crowd parted. A man walked in tall, in a well-tailored navy blue suit. The kind of presence that makes people move without thinking. He looked around, once saw me, saw Lisa, and asked in a calm, level voice, "Who gave the order to fire her?" Lisa's whole tone changed. "Sir." The staff member was being careless, and that woman he cut in, pointing straight at me, is my wife. Silence dropped so hard, it felt like the music cut out. I turned to him slowly, my brain still trying to reconcile the man from the street, the man from the registry, with the man in a CEO suit in my store. "I'm Derek Cole," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "CEO of Cole Enterprises, and this is my wife." Bella's mouth fell open. Lisa blinked like her brain had restarted. "I had no idea," Sir Lisa stammered. "That's the problem." Derek said, voice still calm, but with an edge. "You shouldn't need to know who she is before you treat her with respect. You treat every staff member with respect, not just the ones you think are useful." He turned to Bella. "And you? This isn't your store. You're not allowed here anymore." 2 security guards had already moved into position. Derek gave them a small nod. "Escort them both out and remove them from every Colmart location, effective immediately." Bella tried to protest. Lisa started begging, but it didn't matter. They were walked out in front of everyone. Derek looked at the staff and customers and said simply, "If anyone here has a problem working with my wife, feel free to leave now. Otherwise, do your jobs and treat her with the same respect you want for yourselves." Nobody moved. In that moment, I realized 3 things. 1, my husband wasn't just rich, he was powerful. 2, my big mouth had called him greasy. And 3, my life had just permanently shifted again. He took me to his penthouse that evening. A glass tower in the sky with floor-to-ceiling windows. Cream sofas. Rugs that looked too soft to step on. When I walked in, I felt like I had accidentally broken into a movie set. "You live here alone?" I asked quietly. "Yes," he said. I sat on the edge of the couch like I'd get fined if I leaned back too much. He offered to make food. I said no too quickly, like eating was some kind of commitment. He laughed softly. "Relax, Lillian. I'm not trying to bite you. We're just trying this for 1 month, remember? Let's not start acting like husband and wife just yet." "Fair enough," I answered, half relieved, half disappointed at how relieved I felt. He gave me the guest room, which looked like a hotel suite, and didn't push, didn't invade my space, didn't ask for anything. My heart wasn't ready to give. A few days later, life tried to pretend it was normal again. I went back to work under a new supervisor, but my body had its own plans. My period cramps showed up heavy, back aching, stomach twisting, and I tried to push through plastered on a smile for customers while I held onto the counter when no one was looking. "Are you okay?" one of the cashiers whispered. "Just stomach pain, I'll be fine." I lied. An hour later, Derek walked into the store in a simple black shirt and jeans, holding a small paper bag and a cup. He came straight to me, ignoring the whispers. "You didn't tell me you weren't feeling well," he said softly. "How did you even know I asked?" "Surprised," I asked. He smiled. "Here, drink this." It was hot ginger tea. The warmth from the cup calmed my hands before the drink even reached my mouth. "Thank you," I said quietly. He leaned in, speaking just for me. "You shouldn't push yourself when your body is crying. I'll talk to your supervisor about adjusting your shifts." "You don't have to do that," I protested. "You're my wife," he answered. "Even if it's just for a month." Then he did something small that meant more than all the expensive things. He gently pressed his palm against my lower back and massaged in slow circles, careful and respectful, not trying to turn it into anything else, just easing the pain. I almost cried from relief right there behind the counter. Of course, that's when trouble decided to show up again. Bella. Somehow she had slipped past security heels, clicking, eyes blazing when she saw Derek bent close to me. I knew something was going on. She snapped, "You lied to me." He stood up slowly, his face calm, but his voice suddenly cold. "Bella, I told you before, stay away from me and from my company," she sneered, looking at me like I was trash. "This girl, this is who you chose over me. I've been trying to make you notice me, and you went and married this lowlife." I opened my mouth, but Derek got there first. "You need to leave now. I'm protecting my wife for the last time. Stay away." Security came fast, and this time he made sure her access to every Colmart branch was permanently revoked. After that, he started dropping by more often. Sometimes with a drink, sometimes just standing at a distance, watching how I worked, how I helped older women with heavy bags, how I fixed loose price tags without being told, how I tried to smile even when I was clearly tired. I didn't know he saw all that, but later he told me that's when he started thinking maybe this wasn't just a 1-month trial. Maybe this was his forever. Around that time, my mom insisted on meeting my mysterious husband. "If he can marry you, he can visit your parents," she said. "We're not ghosts." So that Saturday, Derek drove us to my parents' small house. No flashy car, no suit, just a plain shirt and black jeans. He greeted them respectfully, calling my dad Sir, my mom Ma. They asked what he did for a living, and he gave the simplest version possible. "I work with a company that deals in investments. It's one of many businesses. I stay with my grandfather. My parents are late." He didn't drop the word CEO. He didn't say billionaire. He just kept it humble. Then the neighbor, Madame Nadia, popped her head through the curtain with her bowl of pepper. "I heard your daughter brought her husband." When my daughter's suitor came, he brought a car full of yams, rice wine, even gave us matching wrappers and 20,000 for greetings alone. My mom smiled politely. "That's good. But we're not looking for a suitor who brings a full trailer. We want the one who will treat our daughter well." My dad nodded. "We don't care if he's rich or not. If our daughter is happy, we are happy." And just like that, without knowing who he really was, they passed the test. He didn't even know he was giving them. Later, Derek stepped out and came back with a black box and 2 bags. He gave my mom a gold necklace, set simple, but beautiful. "I don't need gifts," she whispered. "I know this is just appreciation," he said. He handed me a document. "What's this?" I asked. "A house," he replied softly. "It's in your name, and if we ever divorce, it stays with you. I walk away with nothing." My parents stared in shock. He gave my dad a small wooden box with a rare herbal root for his back pain. Something my father had mentioned once. "How did you know?" my dad asked. Derek just smiled. "Your daughter talks about you." That evening, he cooked jollof rice and peppered chicken in our tiny kitchen. Rolled up his sleeves, washed plates afterward, like it was the most normal thing in the world. My parents whispered in the next room, "This one has home training." And somewhere in all that, I felt something in my chest loosen a little. You'd think the story would just get softer from there. Rich man, kind heart, loving family, happy ending. But life doesn't work like that, right? Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. There was a high society dinner. Chandeliers, marble floors, everyone in tuxedos and glittering gowns. Derek invited me, had an emerald gown made for me that hugged my waist, but still felt like me, not like I was wearing someone else's skin. That's where I met Sandra. Sandra was the only daughter of a wealthy industrialist close to the Cole family. For years, the kind of woman who always looked like she had stepped out of a luxury magazine. Tight, sparkly dress, red lips, heels so high, she walked like she was on a runway, even when she was just crossing the room. Everyone knew she'd always had her eyes on Derek. She looked at me, then at Derek, then back at me, like she'd just found a stain on something she owned. "Oh, Derek, you didn't tell me you were bringing your friend," she said. I smiled politely. "Nice to meet you." She ignored that. "You know I've always told your grandfather you needed someone elegant beside you, someone who fits the family," she added. Still smiling like she wasn't insulting me. Derek's face went flat. "Evening, Sandra," was all he said. Later, when he stepped away to talk to some investors, she moved closer, pretending to get out of someone's way, and accidentally splashed champagne all over my dress. Cold liquid soaking the front sticky and humiliating. "Oh dear, I'm so clumsy," she said dramatically loud enough for everyone around us. "At least you'll dry off in time for the family photos. I mean, once the CEO finally accepts his future in-laws." People turned to stare. I stood there, trying to decide if I should walk out or throw the glass back at her. That's when Derek came back, saw my wet dress, saw her smirk, saw the eyes on us. He took my hand, turned to the room and said clearly, "Everyone meet my wife, Lillian Cole." A wave of whispers went through the hall. "And one more thing," he added, looking right at Sandra from this day forward. "Cole Enterprises will no longer do business with the Joe family." She went pale. "You can't," he said. And I have. He led me out of there, like the decision hadn't just cost millions. If it were you, would you say that was romantic or reckless? Do you think that's fair? Or is that just another kind of power move? Soon after I met his grandfather, Grandpa Charles, properly at the Cole mansion. Warm eyes, white hair, velvet armchair hanging by his side. He took my hands and said, "Beautiful and strong. I like her," then turned to Derek and joked about great-grandchildren. Not everyone was laughing. From the doorway, his Aunt Grace watched with a tight jaw. Later, she would invite Sandra over to the house secretly and whisper plans about how to make sure this girl didn't last long. On my side, I was still trying to hold on to the old Lillian. I went to a university reunion, pulled on my best blouse, and neat jeans, carried my old but clean handbag. Told myself I was still that girl who topped her class, who had plans before she had a wealthy last name. The reunion was full of fake hugs and real gossip. I heard people murmuring, "She used to be the school beauty best in class. Now I heard she married some old rich man for money. Look at that fake designer bag." I held my head up and smiled anyway. Leo. My old class rep came over and was genuinely kind. Told me I still looked the same. Still had the same gentle vibe. We talked, laughed a little, and for a second I forgot about the whispers. Then the air in the room changed. The doors opened, and Derek walked in with 4 security guys. He didn't glance around like he needed approval. He just made a straight line to me, put his hand on my shoulder and said, "My wife Lillian is my wife." Everyone went quiet. Phones came out. "I've instructed HR to blacklist any company linked to Cole Enterprises from working with anyone who thinks mocking others is a joke," he said calmly. "Bullying will cost you. Learn to speak kindly, or stay silent." The same people who'd been laughing suddenly choked on their own pride. In the car on the way home, I whispered thank you. He gave me a sideways smile. "You're welcome, though I'm not sure I liked how close your class rep was standing." "Are you jealous?" I teased. "Not at all," he said lightly. "I just think he was leaning too close." We laughed, but inside something had shifted, for both of us. That night at home, I tripped over the edge of the rug and nearly fell. But he caught me, arms strong around me. "Faces too close." I whispered without thinking, "You're warm." "So are you?" he said quietly. He helped me sit still, holding my ankle, eyes lingering a little longer than before. The air felt different, thicker, like there were 100 unspoken things between us. I wanted to work. I wanted my own money. So when I saw a job opening at a company called AE, I applied. When they called me in, I dressed up quietly, not wanting to wake him. He woke anyway, asked where I was going. When I told him, he offered to make a call to guarantee I got the job. I said no. I wanted to earn something on my own terms. The interview went well until one manager, Kenneth, called me into his office alone. He closed the door, leaned on the desk, and said, "You want this job? I can make it happen, but I want something in return." He walked around the desk, got too close, and said the words I'd hoped I'd never hear from another man in power. "Sleep with me and I'll secure your position. If you don't, I can make sure you never work anywhere decent again." My skin crawled. I grabbed my file, walked out, and didn't look back. I didn't even tell Derek that night, but he could feel something was wrong. He made a quiet phone call to his assistant. The next morning, business news showed that Cole Enterprises had acquired AE at a huge discount, that old management was being removed for harassment and corruption, that any woman harassed under the old regime would get legal support and compensation. Kenneth was fired and blacklisted. A few hours later, I received an email from AE apologizing and offering me a position under new leadership. That was the kind of man I was married to, the kind who might not force me to take his help, but would burn down the walls that tried to trap me. And then came the twist that almost broke us: family dinner at the Cole mansion. Aunt Grace being strangely sweet, wine flowing a little too freely. I didn't drink. Derek did. Halfway through the evening, I noticed he looked off. His pupils were a little too wide, his speech a little slow, his hand gripping the edge of the table just a bit too tightly. He excused himself and went upstairs. Aunt Grace watched him go. Then Sandra appeared like she'd been waiting for a cue. Later, Derek told me he barely made it to his bed before the heat hit him hard. His whole body felt like it was burning. His head was fuzzy, his thoughts slipping. The door creaked, and Sandra walked in, wearing a red silk robe saying she'd come to take care of him. He knew something was wrong, knew he was losing control. So he reached for the glass on his nightstand, smashed it in his own hand, and used the sharp pain to snap himself back. Blood everywhere. He used the clarity to shout at her, to get out, and hit the security button. Security dragged her out. The house went on lockdown. I didn't know any of that yet. What I knew was that the next day, my phone buzzed with photos. Sandra on Derek's bed. Him half conscious, her leaning close, her hand on his face in one shot. No context, no truth, just images. When he came home that evening, I was waiting by the window chest, tight mind spinning. "So this is what you do when I'm not around," I said, my voice shaking but cold. "Lillian, "What's going on?" he asked, clearly exhausted. I shoved my phone toward him. "Don't act clueless. I know our marriage started like a contract, but I thought you had at least some respect for me." He stared at the photos, took a long breath, then walked to the side table, rolled up his sleeve, and slowly unwrapped the bandage on his palm. The cut was deep, angry, ugly. "I did this to stay awake," he said quietly. "She drugged me. I was burning up. Couldn't think straight. I had to feel pain to fight it. She tried to seduce me. I kicked her out. The photos were staged. I promise you nothing happened." I looked at his hand, at the wound at his eyes, not running from mine, and all the doubt and hurt crashed into the memory of every time he'd stood up for me, fought for me, bled for me. In one way or another. There was a long silence. Then I reached for his hand and traced the edge of the cut with my fingers. "You really fought it," I whispered. "I didn't want to betray you," he said, voice rough. "I know we started as a deal, but I feel something for you, and I know you feel it too." I did. He cupped my cheek thumb, catching the tear that slid down without permission. I leaned into his touch. The kiss we shared then was soft and shaky and full of everything we hadn't said. That night, we weren't a poor girl and a rich CEO trapped in a 1-month contract. We were just two people choosing each other, with all the chaos attached. Life kept coming. It never really stops. On my birthday, some of my old classmates invited me to a small lunch to properly apologize for their behavior at the reunion. I went trying to believe they had grown up even a little. Leo was there, still kind, still respectful. At one point, I laughed at something he said and touched his arm. Small, nothing moment. We didn't notice the camera flash from a corner. By evening, gossip blogs were full of cropped photos and toxic headlines. Cole's wife caught flirting with old flame as the former school belle cheating. My phone blew up. So did Derek's. His PR team panicked. People who didn't know me decided they had the right to judge me. In his office, Derek stared at the screen for a long time, jaw tight, then told his assistant to trace the source. They dug into metadata, pulled footage from the restaurant, eventually caught one of the men who'd taken the photos. He confessed Sandra had paid him to stage scandals, maybe even kidnap me and Leo to create worse images. Derek didn't yell. He just nodded. "You laid a hand on my wife?" he asked quietly. "No, sir," the man stammered. "We couldn't get close. Her security was too tight. Call our legal team," Derek told his assistant. Press charges for attempted kidnapping leak the statement with Sandra's name attached. Meanwhile, in my bathroom at home, a different kind of news showed up. 2 faint pink lines on a test. Pregnant. I sat on the edge of the tub, hand over my mouth, heart pounding, whispering, "Are you really in there?" When I told Derek, he froze, then broke into the widest smile I'd ever seen on his face, lifted me gently, and spun me around in pure joy. "We're going to be parents," he kept repeating. For a while, we were just happy. Then I doubled over one afternoon while cooking, pain slicing across my stomach, fear filling every corner of my body. He rushed me to the hospital. We waited for what felt like a lifetime until the doctor finally said, "It was a minor scare. The baby is fine. But Lillian needs rest. No stress, no heavy lifting, no long hours." Back home, standing by the window with my hand on my belly, I told him quietly, "Maybe we need a break." His face fell from me. "Not from you," I said quickly. "From this world, the scandals, the cameras, your name, your money. I just want to breathe. I just want to find myself again." I went back to my parents' house for a while. I needed their worn couch and noisy kitchen, and my mom's heavy hand on my shoulder reminding me I belonged somewhere that had nothing to do with shares or headlines. Derek could have stayed away, sent texts and gifts, but he didn't. He showed up one evening standing in the rain outside their door, no umbrella over his own head. Clothes, soaked, eyes steady. My mom opened the door and sighed. This one is stubborn, a rich man standing in the rain for you. My dad shook his head. You can't fake that kind of love. I stepped outside the rain cold, his presence warmer than anything. You're not giving up, I said. Never. He replied, cupping my face with wet hands. You're mine. I'll wait as long as it takes, just don't leave me alone in this world. I cried right there in the rain and finally said, let's go home. The next storm came in the shape of my past, again. One morning, crossing a busy street not far from the supermarket, I heard my name. Lillian. I turned, and there he was, Ethan, in a cream jacket and sunglasses, acting like a villain in a bad movie. He stepped in front of me and said, I don't want to cause a scene, but unless you want the whole country to think you're a cheater and not qualified to be a billionaire's wife, you'll transfer $1 million into this account. He held up a slip of paper with banking details scrawled on it. I'll keep quiet and stay out of your life. Otherwise, who knows what stories might appear. Your parents, your poor little family, they might get harassed. You know how cruel the media can be. I felt pure disgust. I was crazy to ever date you. You are a cheap loser. Yes, you were. He smirked. But here we are. A black SUV pulled up and the door opened. Derek stepped out wearing a dark shirt, eyes cold. Stay away from my wife, he said calmly. Ethan turned, tried to play it cool. Derek already had his phone out. $2 million done, he told his head of security after tapping. Ethan grinned. Pleasure doing, Boosie. Break his left leg, Derek said quietly. Not breaking eye contact. Make sure the medical bill matches the payment. Ethan's grin died. Wait, what? It was too late. The guards dragged him toward an alley. A scream echoed behind the building. That's how we deal with pests, Derek said, turning back to me. Tell me honestly, if it were you, do you think that was too much or just enough? Do you think that's justice or just another kind of violence dressed up as love? As if we didn't have enough drama, another ghost returned. Jane Williams. Jane was someone Derek had dated briefly before, me introduced by both families, the so-called perfect match. She had left to explore life in the States. Suddenly she was back in town, and gossip blogs started hinting at an old romance rekindled. One night at a club opening, an older guy tried to grab her, whispered something disgusting in her ear. She slapped him, and he raised his hand to hit her. Derek stepped in, grabbed his wrist mid-air, pulled Jane away, and got her into a taxi. Outside under the cameras, he told her clearly, I didn't help you because I care. I helped you because I was raised right. I'm married. I have a wife I love. You left. Stay gone. The blogs didn't report that part. Not long after, she appeared in the lobby at Cole Group, dressed neatly, carrying a folder with the company logo, smiling like she belonged there. What are you doing here? Derek asked. Voice tight. Grandpa said the company could use my expertise from the States for your expansion project, she said. Sweetly, I'm just here to assist. You're not part of this company, he replied. You don't belong here. Stay out of my office. Later, when he came home, there was a perfume on his shirt that wasn't mine. I noticed. So you finally came back, I said, arms folded. What's that supposed to mean? He asked, tired. You smell like another woman's perfume, I said plainly. Don't deny it. I've heard the rumors. People are talking about you and Jane, saying you're the perfect match, saying she's back to reclaim her place. He sighed deeply, Lillian. There's nothing between us. I didn't invite her. I didn't even know she was coming. She showed up unannounced, claiming Grandpa recommended her. I told my assistant to ban her from the premises. I'll make it clear to everyone that Jane Williams has no connection to me anymore. I only have one woman I want by my side. Do you promise? I asked, voice softening. I promise, he said, taking my hand. The next day, he officially banned her from all Cole properties. But she wasn't done. She sent me a message. Can we talk privately? Woman to woman. Please meet me at Cafe Aria. I went. I didn't want to look paranoid, and part of me wanted to stare this ghost in the face. She was already seated by the window, latte in hand, smile too tidy. "I didn't call you here to fight," she started. "I just think you deserve to know the truth." "What truth?" I asked. "Derek and we were together before you," she said, eyes shining with practiced sadness. "I was his first love. We even lived together. I got pregnant, but I lost the baby. It broke him. That's why he built walls around his heart. I'll be honest, I came back because I realized I still love him. Seeing him with you hurts. You're sweet, but he doesn't love you the way he loved me. He's only with you because Grandpa wants an heir. You're just a placeholder, a surrogate for the family name." Her words cut deep because they were built on just enough possible truth to sound believable. "You're lying," I said. But my voice shook. "Am I?" She shrugged. "Ask him. Ask Grandpa. They won't deny the miscarriage." "You're cruel and pathetic. I told her if you really loved him, you wouldn't have left." I walked out. But her poison followed me home. That weekend, Grandpa invited us all to lunch. He talked happily about making our union official, with a proper wedding, both families' big celebration. Then he said, "And Jane will help coordinate the date." Derek immediately said, "Grandpa, that's not necessary." Jane smiled politely. "I'm honored, but I don't think Lillian would be comfortable. Family is family." Grandpa said, "You've known Derek the longest." "We are not family," Derek said sharply. The air went still. Jane suddenly blurted, "I came back for Derek. I won't pretend." "Jane." "That's inappropriate," Grandpa snapped. "Hurt you left years ago without a word." "I miscarried," she shouted, tears welling, "and he doesn't even remember what we had." The story again. Later that day, while helping Grandpa in his study, I gathered the courage to ask, "Can I ask you something personal about Jane?" He sighed. "Of course, my dear." "Did she really lose Derek's child?" I asked. He took off his glasses and looked at me honestly. "That girl's tragedy is not what people think. She disappeared for months, then came back, claiming she'd miscarried, but the timing was off. Derek never confirmed anything. Truth is, nobody knows who the father was. She left him, not the other way around." I felt something heavy drop off my shoulders. He reached for my hand and said, "Love isn't built on a story from the past. It's built on what you walk through together. Don't let ghosts ruin what you have." I went outside into the garden, hand over my belly, and for the first time in a long time, I let myself breathe fully. Then the van pulled up. It was a quiet street. I didn't see it coming. The door slid open. Masked men jumped out, grabbed me. A cloth went over my mouth. A smell filled my nose. My scream died in my throat. The last thing I remember is my baby's heartbeat pounding in my ears. Derek had put 2 men to quietly watch over me just in case. When they called him and said, "Sir Madam's been taken," everything in his world stopped. They traced the van to an abandoned warehouse at the edge of the city. He didn't wait for a full team. He didn't wait for the police, he went. When he burst through the door, he saw me tied to a chair, gagged, breathing hard, and behind me stood Sandra, wild-eyed, holding a jagged piece of metal inches from my stomach. "You think you can steal everything from me?" she screamed. He didn't bother answering. He moved. He took down one guard, got stabbed in the side by another, but kept going, blood seeping through his shirt eyes, locked on me. He shoved Sandra aside, put his body between me and whatever came next. By the time backup arrived and Sandra was restrained, he was on his knees bleeding, still refusing to let anyone come near me. At the hospital, they rushed him one way and me another. Hours later, the doctor smiled and said, "He's stable, and so is the baby. You're both going to be fine." I broke, completely. I sat by his bed, held his hand, and cried with relief. A few days later, Jane showed up again, this time with broken pride. She admitted she'd lied about a lot of things, that the miscarriage wasn't Derek's, that she'd come back because she didn't want to lose her access to the Cole name. He listened, then said calmly, "This is your last warning. If you come near us again, it won't just be your reputation you lose. You'll face the law." Sandra was charged with kidnapping attempted murder conspiracy. Aunt Grace went quiet, her influence shrinking into her own shadow. When Derek finally came home from the hospital, the house was full of flowers, laughter, relief. But my favorite moment happened later in our room, just the two of us. We were already married on paper, sure, but that marriage had started with panic and pride and a street full of people. Now, after everything we'd walked through, exes, family scandals, blood, almost death, it finally felt like it belonged to us. He knelt down, wincing a little at the stitch in his side, and held out a simple ring. "Let's renew our vows," he said. "No crowd, no cameras, just us." I started crying before I could even answer. We held hands and promised each other out loud what our actions had already been screaming, that we would stay, fight, listen, protect, choose each other again and again, no matter what storm came next. Outside, the city lights flickered against the glass. Inside, my hand rested on my belly. His hand covered mine, our hearts finally beating in sync. You might listen to all this and think, "Wow, she's lucky," or "Wow, she's crazy," or maybe a little of both. But here's what keeps me up sometimes. How many women are pressured into marriage before they're ready? How many are told their worth is tied to a ring? How many deal with bosses like Kenneth X's, like Ethan, rivals like Sandra and Jane, and don't have someone with Derek's power standing in their corner? And what about Derek using that power to protect me, cutting off entire families from business, ordering a man's leg broken, buying companies just to oust predators? Is that love justice, or just another kind of violence that happens to be on my side? So I'm going to throw this back to you. If it were you, would you stay with a man who can be that gentle and that ruthless at the same time? Do you think the people in this story got what they deserved, or did some of them pay too high a price? Tell me in the comments, who do you think crossed the line, and where would you have drawn it if you were in my place? Do you see Derek as a hero, an anti-hero, or just a man doing his best with what he has? And have you ever been pressured into something? A relationship? A job? A decision? The way my mother tried to pressure me into marriage. If this story made you feel anything, anger, hope, confusion, maybe a little faith in love that fights back, hit like, subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear. They're not alone in the mess. And don't just leave quietly. Tell me your own story. Down below, your own unfair moments, your own hard choices, because this might be my life I'm talking about. But I promise you, somewhere out there, this is somebody else's reality too.